Hey guys, in the previous video we talked about the 7 key pillars, and we talked about the one key pillar you've got to really crush because all of the rest are completely unnecessary if you don't figure out leadership and scaling. And so in this video, what I'm going to be talking to you guys about is the different types of brokerage models that exist. So this isn't something we expanded on in the book. So if you're watching this, kudos to you because we don't really talk about this in the book. I probably could have, at one point actually the book was about 1,000 pages and we scaled it back to 200, I think 211 or whatever it was. But you know, this was something we originally had in the book, but we didn't add it just for the sake of not wanting a book that was like 2 inches thick. So the thing I want to explain about the different brokerage models and why this is important is because if you're a real estate agent out there and maybe you've got a small team like a buyer's agent, assistant or whatever, and you're having a difficult time growing, there is a possibility that you could be limiting your ability to grow because you might be running a team under one of these different capacities. So let me just explain real quickly before I dive any deeper into the different types of models. So first you've got the big box name brand brokerage. So Sotheby's International, Keller Williams, Syndicate 21, what are some, Remax. Interesting thing about Remax, like Remax is kind of like a transaction fee broker, and what I mean by that is like it's like super cheap to be an agent at Remax. If you do a lot of deals, like if you're selling a lot of homes, you can go to Remax and have some very favorable commission splits. Whereas the typical big box name brand has got typically like 70-30 splits and caps. The interesting thing about these, the big box name brand thing, when I want to bring up is first off, if you're running a team under a big box name brand brokerage, one of the challenges is you've got a cap for every single agent you bring on. And so that negatively impacts your profitability. So if you think about it, like in the beginning stages of building your business, cash is an incredibly sacred resource. And if you have more of it and you're a smart, ambitious team builder, you're going to reinvest that cash, right? And so let's say, for example, you have got 5 buyer agents on your team and you've got a cap of $20,000 per agent. That's $100,000 that you could reinvest. I mean, that's a substantial amount of money. Even if it's only, 30, 40, 50,000, that's a substantial amount of money. One of the biggest misconceptions in the industry is I think a lot of agents think that, there's this huge fear that if I become an independent brokerage and implement this team model that I put myself at risk from a liability perspective. Now, look, I'm not an attorney. I'm not here to practice law. But what I can tell you is what I've learned personally and what made me feel good about starting an independent brokerage using the team model was I went out and got E&O insurance. So errors and omissions insurance is what you get for whenever something goes wrong. For the most part, if you hire the right people and you really focus on a positive consumer experience, hopefully you won't ever find yourself in a situation. Although sometimes you get dragged into litigation, especially as you do more and more deals. So I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but the thing is you have insurance for a reason. So these E&O insurance policies are really there to cover you in case something goes bad. Something else I want to cover about big box name brands. So some other things are there's typically additional line item expenses of being at the at that office. So you might be paying a fee per transaction for E&O insurance. I had a friend of mine at a big name brokerage, won't mention names, but he spent $80,000 on E&O insurance, and he asked me what was I paying. And we had a policy for $250 million in gross sales, and our policy was just over $9,000. So he paid almost 10 times what I was paying. And the thing is, as a big box name brand brokerage, when you've got 100,000+ agents, you're going to find yourself in litigation a lot, which causes your insurance policy to go up, and that cost gets dispersed across the agents. So by being an independent brokerage, you don't have any former claims, and so you've got a favorable rate from my experience when it comes to the E&O policy. The other thing was, I went out and I reached out to in the state of Texas, we have something called the Broker Lawyer Committee, and there's attorneys on that Broker Lawyer Committee, and they have practices that focus on representing brokerages. And so I went out and built a relationship with a real estate specific attorney that helps brokerages. So these are some of the things you can do to mitigate the risks and literally improve profitability exponentially. And again, like I said, if you can save, in some of those cases I mentioned, $50,000, $100,000, think about where you could reinvest that business. I challenge you guys, take a moment, like close your eyes. If you had an extra $50,000, what would you use that money on? Like, where would you go invest it? Would it be better technology, something to help you convert leads? Would you buy more leads? Would you buy higher quality leads? How much faster would your business grow if you could save, 50, 60, 70 plus $1,000? So that's one thing I really want to mention about big box name brand brokerages. A lot of them are really great. They have some great coaching, training, and I'm a huge advocate of getting coaching. I think your shortcut to success in anything in life is finding someone that's already done it and not reinventing the wheel. I like to say, I don't know how many of you guys are fans of Shark Tank, but I heard Damon John on Shark Tank one night say that pioneers get slaughtered and settlers prosper. And that really resonated with me because in the early days of building a team, I felt like I was constantly reinventing the wheel, trying to figure things out. And the truth is, the real estate brokerage industry, it's been around for decades and decades. And lots of people have figured this out. So we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We just need to find somebody that's done it and duplicate the things they put in place to get similar results. So at any rate, that's one of the downsides of building a team under a big box name brand brokerage. And I think the limiting belief is there's a lot of people fearful of risk, and they also believe that the brand name is what causes you to get the clients. But the truth is, the clients want to work with you because you can build rapport with them, because you're the market expert, and they feel like you can add more value than any other agent. And these are universal principles. Those three things I just mentioned, those are universal principles to sales in general. So the consumer at the end of the day wants to trust you, the person they're working with. The big box name brand stuff I think is attractive to someone that's a brand new agent. But if you're a market expert, like, you need to begin thinking about how to build your own brand name and become like a celebrity and an authority in your marketplace if you want to build a really sizable business that you can exit one day. Now, for some of you guys, you may be with a transaction fee broker. So for example, they charge $500 per transaction. So every time you close a home, you pay a $500 transaction fee, and maybe you pay like $100 in E&O insurance. And that sounds great and all, but the challenge is, as you grow your business, those transaction fees really add up. So kind of fast forward, maybe you're at 25, 50 deals right now. Fast forward to when you're at 150 deals. If you're at 150 transactions and you're paying $500 per transaction, that's $75,000. That's a pretty significant amount of money. When all you need to do to become an independent brokerage is, put a policy and procedures manual in place, get an attorney on retainer, get your E&O insurance, and there's some other things. I'm not going to get into all that on this video, but I think there's a lot of limiting beliefs about what it takes to open a brokerage. If you're watching this video, I have to imagine it's really important to you to educate yourself, and you probably have just an incredible amount of knowledge in your head. And I mentioned this in the previous video. There's right now, in this very moment, as you're watching this video, there are hundreds of people in your marketplace searching Facebook groups and searching Google, trying to find answers to their questions. And you can help them, from a growth perspective. I mean, just grow 200, 300, 400%. So anyways, the third thing I want to get into is the hybrid approach. So the hybrid approach is when you offer, for example, a very favorable commission split on sphere deals. And then what I mean by hybrid is you also offer leads. So typically in the team model, you're offering leads. And so in the hybrid model, basically you've got, you're going to recruit hundreds of agents, and kind of your value proposition is giving leads. But in the hybrid model, you're not implementing a high degree of control. And so what I mean by that is, you're not going to go out there and buy the best leads possible. You're just going to generate as many leads as possible and kind of use it as a way to recruit agents by offering this value proposition. Because if you're running like an independent brokerage or a boutique shop and your hybrid model, you don't necessarily have like the national brand name behind you. So your value proposition is favorable sphere deals and leads. And so, what's really tough in the hybrid model is, if you're building a team, one of the core competencies to building your business is generating really high quality leads as your business progresses. And so in the hybrid model, the leads they're generating are typically the lowest cost leads you can buy. So think Google AdWords, Facebook, SEO, things of that nature. Typically those leads are like 6 to 12 months out. And so your growth is going to be really limited by how many leads they send you and also by their quality. There's 3 phases of growth we talk about in the book that you're going to go through. There's 3 phases to the growth curve. And so as you go through each section of that growth curve, you've got to upgrade each of those 7 key pillars. There's very tactical things you got to put in place. You're going to learn more about that in the book. But ultimately, if you're watching this, the key thing I want to get across is that it's really important that if you're building a team and your goal is to exit the business and run a lean, mean, like highly optimized, very efficient business. You're going to need to build your own brand. You're going to need to cut your costs significantly so you can invest in each of those 7 key pillars. And in my mind, the best strategy and the best way to do that is by opening an independent brokerage and implementing the team model. So as I stated in the previous video and at the beginning of this video, I think the biggest misconception is you can only run a team underneath one of these other types of brokerage models. And the truth is there's no reason why you can't run the team model under an independent brokerage. And in my opinion, like these things are one and the same. If you're a team leader and you're building a team of buyer agents and listing agents, like you basically own almost all of the responsibilities of being a broker. In fact, in the state of Texas, if you are supervising more than 6 salespeople, you're actually required to get your broker's license. So, you need to do your own research in your specific state, but you're pretty much owning all of the responsibilities of a traditional brokerage. So, I just want to explain some of the limiting beliefs I think you may need to bust. And again, you may be building a team under one of these models, and maybe you don't want to look at how much money you've paid out, or maybe you've just never really taken the time to really think about it. But when you're paying out $30, $40, $50 plus $1,000 to a brokerage and all those line item expenses, just think about where you could reinvest that money, because there are substantial cost savings once you've become a market expert and you could train other agents. There are substantial cost savings to start your own independent brokerage. So anyways, these are the key ones. In the next video, we're actually going to be diving really deep into the early climb. So this is actually your first phase of the growth curve, and we're going to be talking about the early climb. And so yeah, stay tuned for the next video.